And welcome to another episode of Patriots Fourth and Two. Derek Havens, Steve Bals, Jerry here. As always, we're both here from PatsFans.com, both PatsFans.com bloggers. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about a ton of topics, including kind of the whispers and the rumor mill on Radio Row, the Patriots' new additions, and announcing the final roster for the coaching staff, and of course, give our thoughts on the Super Bowl coming up. Before we do anything, every show I've done this for 10 years. Well, the last couple of years as I've been host. Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. The funny thing is there's never a dull day in Foxborough.
True.
Just like in Washington right now as well, right? I mean,
Isn't that the truth?
every day you turn on the news and something's happening. So, there's never a dull day with the Patriots and with the NFL. And, even with the Super Bowl going on, there's lots of other stories happening.
Isn't it crazy? There's just so many different angles you could take. We're not going to dive into all that right now. But I mean, really with the Super Bowl, I mean, it's become just this crazy spectacle. It's obviously the game, but then it's like the wife and girlfriends of players and the pop culture element and who's performing at halftime and what that performance is like. And then there's the whole fashion statement. There's some kind of political statement. I mean, you can take it in a freaking number of ways. It's really crazy what it's become. And it seems like it has only grown exponentially, at least in my mind. Seeing it as social media and everything just continues to blow up and over the last 10 15 20 years. Like, think about if Twitter had been around with like Janet Jackson and like Justin Timberlake. It would have just shut the whole site down. It just would have, or whatever it is. Michael Jackson's performance, the classic Creed or U2 or some of these amazing, artists. It's like it really is crazy to see the kind of spectacle it's become and how all encompassing of so many different genres of just our lives are kind of rolled into it.
Yeah, and it seems lately it's more speaking of the halftime shows, they're more flash than substance, I think.
Sure.
You get all these visuals and everyone oohs and ahs, and then the music kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Call it what it is.
I'll be kind of curious. Like I know Bruno Mars maybe not necessarily be for everybody. I think he's talented. I thought his performance was really interesting, but like, flash and substance, you want to talk about like, what is Kendrick Lamar going to do at the Super Bowl halftime? I'm not sure if you have a thought on it, but it's like he just won 5 Grammys, so he's popular. Mm-hmm. He's put out some good music. He's certainly a good hip hop artist, but like, how is he going to translate it if he's going to translate it to I guess the general population of people who are watching it who might not all listen to hip hop music or whatever. Like, my dad has no idea who Kendrick Lamar is. He doesn't like hip hop music. I love everything. I could tell you everything about Pearl Jam or AC/DC. I could tell you about Elton John. I could talk to you about the Monkees and Eddie and the Cruisers. I could talk to you about Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, Dr. Dre. I'm very diverse, but I know that I'm a little bit different than everybody else. So, everyone has their own taste in genres. Anyway, the longer the short of it, Steve, is that it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And it is crazy, again, the spectacle and all-encompassing that Super Bowl is, because there are so many different layers. And we're talking about opening thoughts. My opening thoughts are going to be regarding to Radio Row and how, leading up to the Super Bowl, there's all the player interviews. There's, different kind of, awards and all the main talk shows are there. And I really find it fascinating. Honestly, I think it's really exciting to kind of see it. For example, I know like 98.5 sent out a bunch of their crews to go out there and have people on. And I think they've had a ton of good guests, even if you're not a fan of like, Beetle and Zoe or Felger and Maz. Like, they've had a lot of good guests on this week, and they've been interesting. And shout out to Ian Logue the godfather of our podcast and patsfans.com. Really, he's transcribed a bunch of these interviews. So if you don't want to listen to him, if you just want to kind of read through it, he's posted it all on the website. I was just talking to him earlier, and so it's really cool because there's been some really interesting guests, different perspectives. You get everybody from national media, local media, former athletes, current athletes, celebrities from different avenues. It's just a really cool experience. So, Steve, my opening thought is that Radio Row is really cool because I think you kind of get to hear interesting stories and interesting perspectives from different channels.
Yeah, and that's a great point because you know it's Super Bowl week and they're going around. It's an eclectic group that descends on the Super Bowl every year. Some of them are great. Some of them are kind of off the wall. Um, I didn't care for the question that was posed at Kelsey in front of the whole world from that guy who was really being a smartass. I mean, let's
Mm-hmm.
call it what it is. You know, yeah. When they asked him, "What do you love more, Taylor Swift or your quarterback getting phantom roughing the passer calls?" That to me was like, boot that guy out of
Well,
here.
so to me, and this is I didn't think we were going to go here, and this is like totally random, and we'll get back on track. But to
Mhm.
me, like that is a Dave Portnoy question. And honestly, like the questions when Dave would go down there and ask questions, and they'd kick him out because he was with Barstool or whatever, that was because they didn't like Barstool. Dave asked more intelligent questions than that guy. If that guy calls himself a journalist, he should be ashamed of himself and embarrassing because I was embarrassed for him. I know I'm not a journalist now. It's not my profession. I know you are, but we've both been in the industry. To me, that is literally trying to go ahead and kind of bait a stupid answer or whatever to go ahead and pull something out of context and honestly, I thought that was bush league as hell. I think that guy's a disgrace.
Yeah,
So I muted
and I
myself there.
agree. I mean that to me was like it's uncalled for. Okay, yeah, it's Super Bowl week, you know, and you're trying to bushwhack this guy with this question. Look, we all have our views on that subject, but ambushing Travis Kelsey during media night, that's not the place for that. You know,
Yeah. And if you think,
and
and honestly, if you're one of those people that are listening to the show and you think that the Travis Kelsey Taylor Swift thing was kind of a ruse or a sham, I would say at this point you're probably wrong. It's gone on so long that it probably isn't at that. It probably is actually legitimate. But if you're so bothered by the fact that they mention Taylor Swift every once in a while, or they show her on TV for a little bit, it doesn't bother me. Some people get really riled up. A couple of my friends really get annoyed by it. I don't know what your take on that is. It doesn't bother me. Does it get a little bit annoying? Like sure, but it's like it to me. It's less annoying for them to show her like in the stands than for her to be like walking down the tunnel to go to like the box where she's going to watch the game. Like to me, that's like it's like why are we turning her into one of the athletes that's walking to the locker room?
exactly, yeah,
Like I say, I don't need to see that. If that to me is them trying to go ahead and just get views and whatever content they can, with interactions or whatever on social media. If you want to tell me that you're annoyed by that, I would agree with you. I think that's kind of gay too. I I should probably use it like those terms, but I think it's I don't really think it makes a lot of sense. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't get it, but. But if you're going to tell me that they panned to her in the booth mid game for 15 seconds, 2 or 3 times, okay. I mean, she's an icon in a lot of people's eyes. So I guess the outrage on it, Steve, to me is whatever. But I guess that's again all encompassing in the Super Bowl. It brings again so many things. I mean, I listened to multiple sports shows that were talking about what Taylor Swift was wearing,
I know.
walking into the stadium. Like to me, like if that's what you want to talk about, then that's fine. To me, that's stupid. But showing her, as a huge billionaire, pop culture figure, dating one of the best players in the NFL, or at least one of the more decorated career athletes in the NFL. That wherever you want to land in in that category, that doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Right. And I feel the same way when people uh, write columns. You're looking up sports columns, and you want to see results and analysis from a certain game, and there's columns written about what the sideline reporters are wearing. You know, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't care about that stuff.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't matter to me. But anyway, we've said our piece. Steve,
Yeah.
so many different thoughts, so many different directions to go here.
Well,
So
while we're on the subject of Radio Row, I really liked what I heard from Kurt Warner.
yeah,
Um,
please share that.
yeah, he was really. He said he was really excited for the Josh McDaniels Drake May thing, because he thinks they're going to bring out the absolute best in each other. Kind of paraphrasing there, but I thought that was really interesting. That's coming from a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think he knows a little about the game, and I found that very interesting because we're all kind of anxious to see what McDaniels can do, and there was a lot of talk about. I saw a couple of columns. The NFL's on red alert because Josh McDaniels is going to unleash this new offense on people. And I thought that was really interesting too. I didn't know if you caught any of that.
So the thing that I've seen is that Josh McDaniels. I know Greg Bedard had some thoughts on this with Nick Cattles on his podcast. Um, Josh reportedly spent some time in some college football programs, spent a little time with the Los Angeles Rams, the Kansas City Chiefs, and basically was trying to integrate some different new philosophies and wrinkles into his offense. I think and I'm not going to sit here and say this is fact. This is my educated guess, is I think that he's going to go ahead and integrate his old offense and see how we can adapt it to newer age styles, newer age college athletes. He's always had kind of a spread, philosophy. Comes from, again, the Earhart Perkin, offense, which we've talked about at nauseum on this program. I also think that there are different levels, different motions, different things with the college game. And let's be honest, the NFL game is adapting from the college game because these guys are coming through a pipeline, and they're all running a very similar offense, which used to be like you would have the player adapt to the NFL style. Now it seems the NFL is adapting to the college style, and I think that's because it's speed, it's kind of the thing that I used to say for the Celtics, and a lot of people used to say for the Celtics when Brad Stevens was the head coach, which is pace and space, which is kind of how the NBA game has gone. And it's the same way you see on NFL fields. I think you're looking at them keeping things up tempo, faster pace. You see it with Mike McDaniel running these different motions, orbit motions, different jet sweeps, things like that. I think that it's all about getting athletes in space. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes and what he's done this year. A vast majority of his yards, and this isn't really taking anything away from him, but a vast majority of his yards have come from very short passes where guys are getting yards after carry. And that's because Andy Reid is designing plays, and his scheme is basically to go ahead and get guys in position and make plays. And it's Patrick Mahomes throwing a 4-yard pass, but it's a 22-yard gain because Isaiah Pacheco or Xavier Worthy or whoever it is going ahead and taking those 18 yards and, adding on to it. So I think that it'll be interesting to see how Josh kind of works that in. But look, Josh did work with Tom Brady. He had a part in developing Brady, even though Brady was, already who he was. But Josh did help in that, in my opinion, or at least I don't care what percentage, but there is a percentage there. He also went ahead and worked with a couple other young quarterbacks, and I think he has shown that his style is amenable to different style players. And I think you saw that a little bit with Cam Newton too, even though it wasn't super flashy. I think with an athlete like Drake May, who might not be where Tom Brady is per se, it might not ever get there. Probably odds would say not. Is a big body quarterback with a great ability to run, an excellent arm, can make all the throws. I think it really opens things up for Josh to get creative. So that to me was really exciting about what Kurt had to say.
Yeah, and the fact that I watched the Games with Names podcast when he was on there with Julian Edelman, and this was back in training camp, and he was talking about working with May, and you know, uh, like he was. I'm paraphrasing again, but basically saying you have to take that athleticism into account, and you have to work that into your offense because it's such a valuable asset to have. And it's very
100%.
true. Yeah.
So a couple other things. Did you happen to listen to Matt Patricia on Julian Edelman's podcast?
Yes. That was awesome.
For one, let me just say this. Julian's podcast is honestly really good. I know everyone has a podcast, including us, which is going to make this sound really funny, but like everyone and their mother has a podcast. But Jules' podcast is really good. He has some really interesting guests. And I think he does a good job of getting them to kind of open up. I think Patricia seemed relaxed. Looks good, by the way. Dropped some LBs.
Yep.
Looking good. He talked about, his really his background with space. He talked about the Super Bowls in the past, the Malcolm Butler play. Also kind of dove into a couple other things. Was there anything from that specific interview that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah. I mean, just again, there was so many funny episodes that they would start talking about that you automatically, because you see these guys as kind of, we all know that they're not, but when you see them on the field, it's kind of like, yeah, these guys are automatons and they don't you know show any emotion or whatever, other than maybe when they get mad, right?
Right.
But seeing Patricia just laughing with Edelman, talking about some of the incredibly crazy stuff that happened, it's one of those things that you really have to tip your cap to, because it was, again, that time flies by when you watch those two guys.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. I want to get into going back to Radio Row since we're on this subject. T. Higgins obviously been a big topic of conversation here for Patriots fans because he's going to be, he's an impending free agent. Patriots have a need at the position, ton of money to spend. And Albert Breer was on 98.5 with Solak and Bertrand. And I think this was Monday. So we're recording this Thursday, February 6th. This was this past Monday. I'm just going to read a little kind of bit from the transcription here that Ian did for the website. And then we'll go ahead and discuss it. Albert Breer said, I still don't like T. Higgins to come here. I don't. Here's the thing. They offered Brandon Ayuk a better deal than Pittsburgh did. They offered Ayuk a better deal than Cleveland did. If I remember right, again, I don't have it in front of me. I know we talked about this before, but I think it was $32 million on a 4-year deal, and he had a choice. Or $30 million per year. It was a 3-year deal. He would rather go to Pittsburgh, where the number was something like ... It was a tick less than TJ Watt because they wanted to keep him under TJ Watt. They felt like it was important. It was like something 27.8 or whatever it was. When you guys start getting up to that neighborhood, guys are going ahead and going to start questioning money, things like that. I'm going to take a little bit less and contend. Buffalo has some cap flexibility for now, and if they go and make a competitive offer for T. Higgins, why wouldn't he go there? So I just wanted to bring this up, Steve, because to me, I find it interesting. And this is not a bash on Breer at all. He's just kind of, and I was paraphrasing a transcription, so like I don't want to go ahead and make it like I'm quoting him verbatim, word for word. Okay, I wouldn't do that. and I'm not discrediting Breer's knowledge on the subject, but to me, Steve, it's not breaking news that that right now the Patriots aren't a desirable location.
Mhm.
I think that they do have. I do think they have a good organization. I do think there's a lot of people that are excited about Drake May, but at the end of the day, right now, and I think what Breer's saying is that look, they've offered money in the past, and guys are willing to go somewhere for less, and they want to contend. That's really not breaking news. That's a guys are going to want to contend, and guys will take less money if they can win somewhere else. Now, I do think the one factor that some people leave out of this, and I'm not saying this Albert Breer, take on 98.5, for example. I just mean the general you of people that have these takes. I think the one factor is that last year there was no quarterback for the Patriots. This year, there is hope and optimism, and you can see excitement at the quarterback position, and that matters exponentially because not only are you building something, you're also going ahead and getting someone who, like T. Higgins as a receiver, can get him the ball. The more balls he catches, the more success they're going to have, and also the more money he could make on another contract. So I do think there's a little X factor that people are leaving out. It's a little bit of a different situation than when it was like Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi or whatever the heck it was. You know what I mean, Steve?
Mhm.
So I thought Breer's comments were interesting. Did you have any thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, and again, I agree with that. I mean, if I'm T. Higgins, where would I rather go? I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that want to throw some money at his feet, and Buffalo is right there. I wouldn't even put it past Kansas City you know, to try to work something out, you know, salary cap wise to bring him on. Um, there's plenty of teams, and you know, um, NFC teams. I mean, the opportunities are going to be there, and there's a lot of teams that are right on the cusp, and then there's the Patriots who aren't close to the cusp just yet. We're
Nope.
hopeful things are going to turn around, but at the same time, they're not there. So the only way they could possibly get a guy like Higgins to come here is they're going to have to massively overpay him to the point where he's blown away by the offer. They can't offer competitive money, and then he's sitting there. You got the Patriots on this hand or Buffalo? Where's he going to go? He's going to go
Right.
to Buffalo. You know,
And
so
we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I
I
think
personally think he's going to stay in Cincinnati.
yeah, and he might, but their owner's been notoriously cheap. And they can't pay everyone. I mean, they got to figure out Jamar Chase first, obviously. Um, I would say that DK Metcalf, who's been on the trade block. No, I shouldn't say on the trade block. There's been rumors about him being traded. He said that he didn't think the Patriots were a desirable location, but he did say a lot of good things. And I don't think what he said was necessarily wrong. I don't think it's unfair to
No.
say that Foxborough's not Miami or LA or New York City. Like I don't think that's wrong to say. He said a lot of good things about it, but it's not like guys are like itching to go there. The one thing I would say is if you are in a market, and the Patriots are one of the bigger markets. But I don't care if you're in one of the big primetime markets or you're a small market. If you have the guy at quarterback and there's a receiver available, if he really likes that quarterback, he'll go. So if Drake May continues to ascend the way that we're all hoping he ascends, guys will want to come. So that to me was a no nothing comment. I thought some people got really defensive about that. Um, and as we're on the same topic as T. Higgins and DK Metcalf, let's talk about two more. We'll take a break and then we'll go to the coaching staff. Cooper Kupp kind of broke the news himself. You want to talk about Myles Garrett too? That's fine. Miles is a Y, not an I, by the way. But
Whoops.
it's all good. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, I made a mistake there. So
So no, it's all good. I was just letting you know. So
I did.
Couple of veterans that are available. Cooper Cup seems to be available. Pretty much said he was going to be moved on. Look, I think Cooper Cup's a great player, Steve. Let's kind of rapid fire these three.
Mhm.
Cooper Cup is a good player, good fit. I think if you were talking about 5-6 years ago and Brady was still here and that's the move you were going to make, I would say go for it. Go ahead and give him the first round or whatever. Because he can come in and catch 100 passes from you, good separation, good hands, whatever. Um, I just don't think that makes a lot of sense for the Patriots right now, depending on the price, because I'm not giving up. I know some people have said this, and I'm going to say the same thing for Myles Garrett when we get to him next. I'm not giving up a first or second round draft pick for them where this team is right now, not for every team. I'm saying for where the Patriots specifically are and where they need to rebuild. I'm not doing it for Cooper Kupp. And while we're at it with Myles Garrett, one of the best players on the planet, literally a physical specimen. He's been his whole life. It's incredible to watch him go. He's basically good for a sack a game. Everybody, if anyone who is listening to the show hasn't listened or hasn't seen the Hard Knocks with the NFC North, I thought that was really well done. And Garrett was highlighted in it. Every single team went ahead and talked about Myles Garrett, how they didn't want what is he, 95? I think it was 95. Like they don't want him to ruin the game. People are scared of him. It keeps offensive coordinators up at night. I think it would be great. I just don't think it makes sense to trade for someone who's 29. Even if he tells you 5 more years, what are you going to do? You want to give up your first round pick next year? Okay, we'll see if that gets it done. But I think it's going to take more than that. Look at what the Chargers gave up for Khalil Mack back in the day from Chicago. I just don't think the Patriots are in that position right now because they need too many things. So I just think they're too far away from some of these type of veteran moves, Steve, personally.
Well, I mean, in regards to Cooper Cup, look, I mean, he had a really down year last year for him. And I mean, he's had injury concerns past few years. Where he's at in his career, I don't think it would be worth the Patriots, investing in the guy. That being said, he would immediately be the best wide receiver on the team by a
Oh,
wide margin.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree.
So,
I'm not denying that either one of these
oh
guys,
no, no,
I just
no.
want for the
I'm
record to
not
show, I'm
saying
not
you were
denying it.
either. I'm just saying, you know, even with his injury history and whatnot, he'd still be the number one receiver by a wide margin. Um, but do you want to invest in a guy that's only probably going to give you 12 games every year? No, I not where, like you said, where the team is at and what the team needs right now.
I'm not
And
comparing Cooper Cup to Mohamed Sanu. I'm not comparing the two, but the same move that they made for Mohamed Sanu, Brady's last year, and they went ahead and they were like, okay, we're going to go ahead and throw a second round pick to go ahead and do that. I would say the same thing. I know that was in season. This is off season. I'm not making it's not a perfect parallel, but you get what I'm saying. If they were at that stage and he was available, I would say go for it. But there's just too many moves they need to make before that happens.
well, he's more in that realm like Juju. He's been banged up. Now, last year, even being banged up, he was still better than Juju was. Um, you know, but it's kind of like in that same thing. Do you want to invest in damaged goods at this stage of the guy's career? I mean, if you're in the middle of a playoff hunt and you need that one more guy to put you over the edge, yeah, in a heartbeat.
Sure.
But no, no. And then with Myles Garrett, I think he's a little bit different because, um, he's still young enough and he's so productive that he would immediately transform the defense.
Well, Cup's
However,
32 and Garrett's 29. So again, like I think that Garrett makes more sense. I just think he's going to cost more, and it goes back to giving up assets to
well,
build. You know what I
and
mean?
and again, there's no way I'm giving up a first or a second for him. Even with I just said, he's one of the best players in the NFL because he is 29. Even though he's still on top of the game, and he fits into that same category I was talking about. If you're building a team that you think you're on the cusp of the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year, and you say, we had a guy like Garrett, it's going to put us over the top, then by all means, I'm all in on that. Um, and the funny thing is if the trade market heats up for him, one of these teams that is very competitive is going to get him for a lower draft pick than the Patriots would
Yeah,
because
100%. I mean, I just don't see a world where Miles Garrett doesn't come away with at least fetching the Browns a 1 and a 2. Don't forget that they're not just going to give up on him, and don't forget that they made one of the worst trades in NFL history with
oof,
Deshaun Watson and lost a ton of their assets. So they're going to go ahead and hold out for the farm. If you're telling me, I forget where the Patriots are in the second round, the specific number. I think it's 36 or 38, somewhere around there. But whatever it is, say that you could get him for the second round pick for this year. Okay, I would do that then because he'll make everybody else better. He's got several more years in him. Whatever. He wants to go to a contender. The reason that he's even that he's even kind of on the block is because he doesn't want to go through another rebuild with the Browns and he wants a shot. So again, it's not a good fit. Now, AJ Brown, the other guy I want to mention before we go ahead and move on, is a little bit different because he, for one, seems a little disgruntled in Philadelphia. He's going to get paid what he's going to get paid. We know what his market is going to be. And he also has a connection to Vrabel and was a Patriots fan and wanted them to draft him originally. And he's a little bit younger. To me, that one would make a little bit more sense. I still don't think you can do it with the 4th overall pick, though.
no. You would have to package something together for a guy like him, and the money with him or with the other two guys isn't.
I'm not even really worried about the money part.
Yeah,
Like, to me,
because they have tons of it.
yeah.
So it's not even a consideration. If they choose to, they could outspend anybody else in regards to any of these guys. So that's not the issue. The issue is, can you get a guy that would like to come here? And maybe Brown, like you said, is in a little bit different category because he played for Vrabel. He knows the Patriots have a quarterback, right? And the money should be really, really good because they have it to spend. And again, he would automatically transform the offense because now teams are going to have to respect that guy. And unfortunately the Patriots don't have any of those. You know, defensive coordinators don't stay up at night worrying about Demario Douglas or Kendrick Bourne, even Keyshawn Booty. Now, in Booty's case, he's making progress. I don't know whether he'll ever get above where he's at right now, but he was getting in what we used to call the Brady Circle of Trust by the end of the year this year, and that's encouraging. I don't know if he'll ever be a number one or a number two guy, but if you're trusted enough where when the quarterback looks at you, you're going to make a play. That's all. I mean, we had guys like that forever. Guys like Chris Hogan, Jojo LaFell, right? All those guys, and they won Super Bowls with guys like that. As long as you're able to do that. Now, AJ Brown is a totally different animal, and I for one would love to see him, and I'm curious of what it would take. It's definitely not going to be the number one pick. If it's a number two, I could live with that.
Right.
Because are you going to find a receiver that's as good as him in round two? Maybe, but they haven't
Yeah.
had great luck.
I just think it's going to depend on the circumstance. if he's got his contract, he's going to keep getting paid a good amount, and he wins, especially if he wins this Sunday. Okay, great. Then maybe he'll want to come, and he wants to come to this organization. He wants to build with May. I think that's one that you could make more sense. The other two, I just think, are a little bit longer in the tooth for the assets that they're going to take to acquire them. Where this team is currently in the rebuild, like that to me is a huge, like that has to be asterisk highlighted, underlined. you know
Yeah,
that that
yeah. I
that
mean,
can't that
it's. I
can't that
mean,
we have to be talking about reality here.
it's where they are right now.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's where they are, and I laughed when I saw Metcalf's comment because it's true. It's not a desirable place right now, you know,
No,
and
it makes sense.
it is what it is. I mean, he was upfront about it, so you know, possibly by next year, it will be a desirable place again.
I
You know.
totally agree. Well, let's step aside here for podcast purposes, take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Patriots' new coaching staff additions and give a quick prediction for the Super Bowl this upcoming Sunday. So we'll be right back after this. All right, we're back here on Patriots 4th and 2, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Steve Balsherry, Derek Havens here. As always, please do subscribe to us on our Patriots 4th and 2 YouTube channel and also on Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. Steve, we talked a lot about the coaching staff last show. We don't have to dive into it 100% right now. Was there anything that stood out to you when they announced their list, which is on patriots.com as we speak?
No, I mean, I like the staff that they're putting together. I said that last week. I think this is going to be a very intriguing year. Um, simply because the last guy they hired, Todd Downing, he's going to be working with Josh McDaniels on the offense, and you know, you look at the experience level they're going to have on offense. I mean, McDaniel has been a tremendous offensive coordinator and a head coach. Not a good head coach, but he's had head coaching experience. Downing's had, you know, coordinator experience and was an interim head coach. Thomas Brown, you know, Doug Marrone. I mean, this is an offensive staff with a ton of experience, and I just love that.
No, absolutely. I think they did a good job of putting together a veteran staff. I think that was important for Vrabel. To me, that strikes home about the culture he wants to build in the team. I think he wants a little bit more structure in the building. I did think he mixed in a couple of younger head coaches. We talked about Wes Welker maybe being a potential receivers coach. They didn't go that direction. They ended up going with Todd Downing, who I don't know a ton about, to be honest, but we'll circle back to that maybe later or on the next show. I still love the Thomas Brown edition in addition to Josh McDaniels. I also love the Doug Marrone as the offensive line coach. That he, say what you want about his time in Jacksonville. He's widely regarded around the league as one of the best offensive line gurus. Having that kind of presence and pillar with your offensive coordinator, your tight ends, passing game coordinator, and Thomas Brown, who spent time with the Rams, who again has a similar style of what Josh was studying last year, and then having the experience up front with Doug Marrone, I don't think should be understated. And then when you flip to the other side with Terrell Williams, on the defensive line, kind of talking about Vrabel with that attacking, violent, physical philosophy, I think is exciting. The defensive backs coach, I think, is a little bit I guess a little bit of an unknown too. I know their backgrounds. Justin Hamilton's been very widely regarded as an up and comer for with the Colts in the past, but I think that basically it's a whole new group. It's going to be a whole new flavor. And Rabel clearly had his fingerprints all over the Steve. I think that's really exciting, that there's going to be some different voices in that room, because I think that they needed a new direction. And I think that what Vrabel said, and he usually is pretty transparent, I think what Vrabel said really shined through in this coaching staff, that they wanted to establish a new culture. And I think that his hirings have pretty much backed that up so far in his first move as head coach.
Yeah, that's 100% um, totally true there, and I'm in agreement with you. I mean, you look at the staff that he's put together, and I think that year he spent in Cleveland, he was probably already putting the staff together in his head of how he wanted to proceed with this, because by and large it happened pretty quickly, and his coordinators all have experience. He could be working a little bit closer with uh, the defense, possibly, at least initially, until Williams finds his feet there. But look at, I mean, the guys they have on offense, those are some really good coaching ads. And I think that this offense is going to look a lot different and hopefully a lot better next year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Um, I guess the only other thing I would say about the coaching staff, Steve, is that we're still waiting to see if there's any other additions, and of course they could always make some changes, but it seems like it's pretty set. And I think, look, they said they were going to take their time with the coaching staff hires. They wanted to make it a swift move from Gerard to Mike, and they did that. With the rest of them, they said they were going to take their time, but I think they were trying to get behind them, because if I had to guess, and I'm saying this as a total guess, I think that with Vrabel, they want to go ahead and get the coaching staff in order so they can go ahead and start evaluating their own roster, do a little autopsy on themselves, and then get ready for Indianapolis and free agency, because that's the next thing up. And then we're going to see a whole lot of roster turnover. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in upcoming shows. We're not going to do it now. Let's finish up the show, Steve, with the Super Bowl matchup coming up. Chiefs, Eagles. Look, a couple different ways to go here, Steve. I think the matchup is going to be really interesting. I give the Chiefs a ton of credit. Look, I don't think the Chiefs have looked all that good this year. I know that's crazy for a team that has the record that they do. I just don't think it's been overly impressive. But the one thing I give them credit for, well, I give them credit for a couple things, but one of the things I give them credit for is good teams find a way to win, and they have shown they know how to do that. They were one of the few teams that didn't score 30 points until they needed to versus Buffalo. They did it when they needed to. Yes, maybe Travis Kelce isn't the same player that he was, a couple of years ago, and maybe Patrick Mahomes isn't having this crazy prolific year, even though he's had a good solid year, but they're still making plays when they need to make plays, and I think that should be acknowledged and appreciated. To me, the Eagles are the best team top to bottom. In the league. They have been for the majority of the year. Howie Roseman has done an incredible job building that team throughout the trenches. It's like, oh, Jason Kelce, one of the better centers for the last decade or two, retires. We're just going to replace you with Cam Jurgens and, not miss a beat. It's like they find their left tackle who was probably a top 3 left tackle in the entire league, found him in the 7th round playing rugby in another country. It's like they have done a good job scouting, drafting, developing, building through the trenches. They add Saquon. Saquon is playing out of his mind. And then they go ahead and they, you look at Devonta Smith. Yeah, they gave him, they put a 1st round pick on him, but Dallas Goedert, really good tight end, they found in the 2nd round. Look at Zach Bond in the middle of their defense. He's someone who's totally been developed through the organization, who's going to make a ton of money in free agency. Look at their rookie cornerback from last year, Quinn Mitchell, like, he's played terrific football. Cooper DeJean, terrific football. Like, all these guys are coming up through that draft pipeline, Steve. And I just think that both these teams have done a really good job of building through the draft. But I think, to me, the Eagles, top to bottom, will be better. I just wonder if the greatness of Mahomes and he is great. I know we'll get to the Patriots Chiefs thing in a second, but Mahomes is great, and I think Andy Reid is far superior to Nick Sirianni. But to me, the roster of the Eagles, is better stacked overall.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, I think the Eagles have the best offensive line in football. And you can see the proofs in the pudding with Saquon this year. I mean, he's on a different plane right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I know Russ will hate this, but this Chiefs team reminds me of, dare I say it, Derek?
Oh, the 04 or 03?
03 team.
Oh God. Oh,
of the Patriots.
Russ somewhere. Russ is pissed.
Oh, he's fuming right now.
He should be. Go ahead, because I agree with you. I'm
going to get an angry email or a phone call from Russ as soon as he hears this. But they kind of remind me of that 2003 team. The Patriots had a lot of close games that year, but they always found a way to win. They went 17-2 that year, or 16
and the Chiefs record right now is pretty similar.
Yeah,
but no, seriously, they did find a way to win. They were good with situation. They had better coaching than most. They didn't turn the ball over a ton. They made plays when they need to. They could go ahead and they could win a mud fight, low scoring, or they could go ahead and score 30 points plus when they need to, like they did against Buffalo. This is a very similar thing, and I know it sucks for some Patriots fans to hear. I'm not saying that they're better. We'll see. We'll compare dynasties when they're done. Okay, but the Chiefs are doing impressive stuff, and this is 100% reminiscent of an old school Patriots team, 1,000%.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I go back to that Super Bowl, right? It turned into a shootout. And, people have kind of revisionist history talking about Tom Brady. You hear a lot of, well, Brady was along for the ride in those first 3 Super Bowls. I beg to differ. Maybe in Super Bowl I, the first one.
But he still made plays when he needed to. And then he led the league throwing touchdowns in 2002, but everyone likes to forget that because they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. But yeah, it's fine.
But in 2003, in the Super Bowl, which is not considered one of Brady's greatest games, in Super Bowls, I mean, we all talk about the different ones, but that one isn't brought up as much. He threw for 354 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't think that's along for the ride.
No. No, but it does piss people off, and I get it. Look, the Chiefs, what Patrick Mahomes has done in his career to this point is undeniably incredible. I mean, just absolutely going to the AFC Championship every single game as a starter, winning in big moments. Now, he's lost big games too. That's going to happen. But the impressive thing, what Patriots fans who are upset about the comparison stuff, what people need to remember is that it wasn't just the winning in the short term for the Patriots early on. They went 10 years between Super Bowls, but they were still competing. They still went to Super Bowls even though they didn't win one, and it was the longevity that made it so impressive. And I think I would tell anybody who's listening to this who's not a Patriots fan, let's wait and see what the Chiefs do, because I don't think Andy Reid's too much longer for coaching. I want to see. Now I know that you're going to have coaches lining up the door to coach Patrick Mahomes. Like that's fine. But I want to see what happens when there's real adversity, when he loses his Hall of Fame tight end, when he loses his Hall of Fame head coach. Then let's see, because we saw the Patriots lose those things and go through changes and rebuild basically 3 times in that 20-year span. And they still went to 10 Super Bowls, So, I mean, Or am I wrong? 10 Super Bowls? Am I losing track?
9.
9. Okay, thank you.
9 in 18 years.
Yeah, should have been 10. Thanks, '06.
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody about that the other day. That AFC Championship game in '06 still pisses me off to this day. Anyway, I digress. Steve, the if the Chiefs three-peat, man, that would be an incredible accomplishment. They deserve a lot of praise for what they're doing, and I do think that there are a lot of comparisons to the Patriots again because I can respect when they need to make a play, they make it. The situational awareness, the coaching, the preparation, the competitive nature. I agree all these things. I'm scared, Steve, and let's work our way into the prediction here. I'm scared. Here's what's going to happen. I want the Eagles to win, even though that makes me so upset because I can't stand Eagles fans. It put them right there with Cowboys and Lakers and Yankees and and so many others. But I can't stand them. But I think they're the better team. What I'm scared, crapless, um, that's the best word I can think of, is that it's going to be Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni with the game on the line, and one of them's going to blow it, or they're going to do something and score, and then Patrick Mahomes is going to have the ball in his hands with a minute and a half left, and then they're going to go down the field and win it. That, to me, is one of those things that I feel like is happening. I'm going to go with Steve. This is a head pick. Maybe not a hard pick. I don't know. But I'm going to go with the Eagles winning this one. I'm going 27-23 Eagles.
That, I would like to see that happen. But, as you said, what scares me crapless is a great Super Bowl, back and forth down the field, and then it comes down to a crucial call by the referees. And who does it go to? Kansas City. I think that the Chiefs are going to win this one by the identical score. That was the score I had picked. But I had
27-23? I don't have the over-under in front of me. I was kind of curious.
Because I think that Eagles defense is legit,
I mean, honestly, but see, here's the thing. Going back to your 2003 comparison, just to make sure we finish off the show, pissing Russ off some more, is the Chiefs defense is playing really well. So they're winning on smart coaching, situational awareness, good defense, things like that, spreading the ball around. I mean,
unfortunate referee calls.
Yeah, I mean, hey, but you know what the thing about the referee calls too is tying it all together as for our final thoughts. Going back to the Radio Row, Mike Florio was on with Felger and Mass, and they talked about the rigging calls and the Chiefs getting all the calls. And Florio said something that I usually think he's kind of a weenie, but I thought he really nailed this one. He goes, the NFL's too stupid, and I forget his wording, but he basically said the NFL was too stupid to pull off them, rigging the Super Bowl or rigging officiating and throwing games. I do think that they are going to get in a lot of trouble with how they've opened up betting if they can't figure out a way for people to not think that. I think that opens up a can of worms that even as powerful as they are, they wouldn't be able to put up that fire. If people think the integrity of the game is up to question, or they think it's scripted, like it's some kind of WWE performance, that's going to be crazy. They're expecting over $1.3 billion to be bet on the Super Bowl alone. They can't possibly put a product on the field if there's not at least integrity to it. Now, do I think that star players in all sports, do I think they get calls more than others? Yes. Do I think that good teams generally make less mistakes than bad teams? Yes. And generally good teams in all sports get more calls than bad teams. All those things are relatively true. Some of the things with Mahomes is getting out of hand, but what I really think the NFL's biggest issue is right now, and this is an off-season topic that we can really dive into more, but what I think what they're having a problem with too is just taking out some of the gray areas. Now, I'm not saying I know how to do that. I don't. But I do think taking out some of the gray area for some of these calls is hard, because I think some of these things where they're trying to protect quarterbacks, but then they become runners and they're protecting them still, I think that really goes ahead and shake things up. All right. Murphy writes, what's up, Murph, by the way, buddy? I miss you. He writes in, Kellen Moore is going to overthink it, 28-21 Chiefs. I could totally see that. I do think that to me, that's one of the factors. I do think there's more pressure on the Chiefs than a lot of people are realizing going for that three-peat. I also think that there's something to be said on the flip side for their experience versus Philadelphia's kind of clenching the butt cheeks, so to speak. Like, I just think that they're going to get too tight, and like you said, Murph, overthink it. I do think that there's something to that. What about you, Steve?
Well, if the Eagles are running the ball with Saquon and they get the lead, and this is where I think Murph's talking about, where Kellen Moore's like, oh, we need to change it up when it's completely working. And that would be a major mistake, like we saw with Baltimore, right?
Yep.
I mean, Derrick Henry has been just an absolute killer. Oh, man, Murph agrees with me, right? But, Derrick Henry he was right neck and neck with Saquon all year long. And then they get in the big game and he carries it, 15 or 16 times? That's defeating yourself, and, goes to Sun Tzu. So, but we can talk about that at another time.
Yeah, 100%.
But, if the Eagles get a lead, I would just pound the rock with Saquon for the rest of the game, and take away those opportunities for Mahomes, because eventually that defense will get worn down and get tired.
Yeah, I think Saquon for Super Bowl MVP makes a ton of sense, because if the Eagles end up winning, I just think he's going to be the one that kind of burns it out. And honestly, I'm happy for him. Just seems like a good dude, that he's just so skilled, and really he just looks he looks honestly so happy. He just looks like he's just loving life right now. So it's just kind of fun to see.
It was like when Randy Moss came to New England.
I keep comparing Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, like leaving a toxic relationship with a girlfriend and then going to a good relationship, and he just looks like, he's like googly eyed and just like, he's hopping around. He's taken out of the game, and what's his face, freaking Shipley or whatever was, he's running down the field. Saquon's running down the sideline with him. It's just funny to kind of see that whole thing unravel. So it's cool. Definitely cool. Well, look, we're going to talk about the game later. We both had 27-23. So I last time I checked, the over-under was 44. I'm sure it's changed in a couple different areas, but, we're both taking the over just slightly. I guess we'll be back here, Steve, probably next Wednesday at our normal time. We'll aim for it, at least. And then we're going to be able to have, probably some more Patriots news, because there is always something going on in Foxborough. We'll be able to go ahead and touch on any other coaching staff additions, talk about the Super Bowl, and then we're going to be talking about Indy. And we have a lot of things to talk about this offseason that we're going to get to. So I'm excited for that. But again, please check out patsfans.com for great content. And shout out to Ian Logue, Russ Goldman. Want to give a shout out to Steve Balistrieri, myself, Derek Havens. Thanks for everyone to listening to this episode of Patriots 4th and 2. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube and Apple Podcast channel. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in the rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. And we'll see you guys next week.